Yeah, FABA for advisors by advisors. Hosted by Evan J. Mayer, where the real ones talk business, no filters, no favors. How they structure, they practice, how they build their team. Independent route or employee machine. Talk platforms, payouts, culture and growth. What really works when you out there on the road? No can lines, just advisors being straight. Real conversations from the people who relate. Double podcast for advisors by advisors.
This is For Advisors by Advisors. I'm your host, Evan J. Mayer, and we have two very special guests today. Mr. Scott Brown is joining us as a co-host. Welcome, Scott, as usual. And 3 years ago, we had a phenomenal interview with Tony Sirianni, who is the CEO and publisher for AdvisorHub. Tony, welcome.
Great. Great to be here again.
He's back by popular demand.
I feel like this is a home game for Tony because I feel like the applause was a little longer and more robust for him.
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they get so excited. Tony, as everybody knows, that's in the industry, that's actually interested in the industry, probably get a subscription to AdvisorHub. You definitely get the emails from AdvisorHub. I actually just got an email about a big group that just left SunTrust, where I was originally at, now formerly Truist, and found that to be an interesting subject. But Tony, welcome to the show. I had a lot of questions for you. First was, last time we spoke, we did cover a lot of ground. What have you seen change over the last 2 or 3 years in this industry from where we were, just 3 years ago on the same podcast?
Yeah, I think you can make an argument that, we've changed more in the last 3 years than we have in the last 20, and you could have said that for the last 5 years or anything else. So the big things thematically in my mind, you can't ignore AI now. That's a looming, issue, and it's a current issue. And equity is the other big thing that's really transformed the industry, the way the industry thinks about itself and the way it sort of works. So I think those two things are, just really weren't in the mix as much, 3 or 4 years ago.
It's phenomenal you're saying that too, because that's two of the subjects we really wanted to hit on today, which specifically was, talking about private equity and equity deals. I know when we spoke 3 years ago, I actually brought this up on the subject, and it wasn't widespread at the time, so we didn't dive too deep into it. And as time goes on, so it was interesting. I reached out to you. It's been a while. We decided to relaunch the podcast. And when we were relaunching it and thinking of who we wanted to have on, I got a piece of mail from you for the CEO summit and the summit that you do. Yeah. And I start looking through the speakers and I go, private equity, linked to private equity. So we've seen a dramatic shift. As far as AdvisorHub is concerned, are you still the sole owner? Is there, as private equity already started knocking on your door yet?
No, I still own AdvisorHub. But look, I'm never going to say no. I think the distinction is what kind of private equity. I think there's been what's happened. Everything's going faster. So in the last 3 years, we initially talk about private equity, but it's really gone fast in the last 3 years. So in my mind, what's happened is we had this war between independents and wires, right? And it was a structural battle. It started out, I was deep in it, right? It was a structural battle. It was an independent RIA firm versus a, wirehouse, publicly traded, whatever. Two different structures. The problem is that it turned into a battle of ideas. Now, the wires lost, unquestionably lost, but they lost the battle of ideas, not so much structure. So you have a guy like Ron Kruszewski who can just say, all this stuff you're fighting for, this was us, Stiefel, 25 years ago. He's right. I mean, culturally, it was the same. Janney is now owned by KKR. They have an equity story. So this equity piece, has been moving around, but this battle that was lost, really, the wires retreated into their strengths. They're still there. They do some things well, right? They have sophisticated products and services, excellent local management, compliance, and all that kind of stuff, right? And look, if you want a friend, get a dog. It doesn't have culture, but for a lot of guys, it's perfectly fine. Great. So that battle's over, but you always have to have a bad guy. So the new bad guy is PE, and you'll see a lot of these stories because there's good PE and there's bad PE. There's just PE that's sort of developing that these guys didn't really understand this business that well. They have a ton of money, they threw it at it, and now they're basically behaving the way the wires used to behave. Hey, you got to conform, you got to do things this way. This is kind of the way it is. So those are bad guys. Now, I'm a believer in capital and all these other things, and I think you find the right partner, your dreams come true, right? And you have a strategic partner, everything could be great. But there is a cottage industry today of people trying to get guys out of bad deals. And we see a lot of that. So I think you're going to see, and certainly in coverage and news coverage, good guys and bad guys are going to separate out. I think you're seeing that kind of already. And you'll see more coverage on that. Why? Because it's at some point it's boring to keep talking about the wires. They're doing what they do. They're all right. So
Well, Tony, let me just take you down this path for a second. When I got introduced to a private equity deal, not to mention names, but I got introduced to a deal, and the deal was you were selling a portion of your revenue going forward for access into private equity shares that at some point would go public, and there would be this tremendous multiple. And I remember that the exit plan was supposed to be 2 to 3 years. Now that was in 2022, so we're already double that, almost almost tripling that as far as time frame goes. And this company that was involved is now really going at it, and I think they got something like $25 billion already, and they keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And the story of the deal has not changed. So, like, as an example, as I mentioned, there was a big group that just left. They went independent through the Wells Fargo independent side, and those deals are there. And now with the amount of assets, and me and Scott were actually talking about this, like the size of this deal, like who is ever going to be able to buy them? Like, are they going to get too big where it's just going to be a wirehouse or a huge bank that ends up encompassing all these
I think
deals?
you underestimate the amount of money that's actually out there, right? So there's huge money out there. The thing with these, I gotta go back to when I started. I started a firm called Washington Wealth Management, right, and grew it to a couple $2 billion. And I remember, I won't say the name of the custodian, but I put my house in it. That's how I financed it. Okay, and so I went to the custodian. I had an advisor who got sick, and I needed cash for him and his family. Right, he was very ill, and it was a big $2 million producer. And basically, the custodian said to me, "Do you have another house?" That was the way to finance it. So you can imagine my journey of trying to figure out how to help this guy. It's these. I wish I had those minority purchase deals, back then. Done the right way. They're an excellent source of ongoing financing, for a firm. So I think that based on where we were versus where we are today, and how many chances you have to get out of those things, and there's just we're just not restricted kind of the way we were before. This is a capital intensive business. If you want to grow, it just is. I started Stewart Partners as well, and you want to grow these things to 50, 60 billion. It takes money to do it, and you got to find the best way you can.
Tony, if I can jump in here, I guess, what Evan and I talked about actually this morning about, and this is a conversation I had, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years ago when all this really got going, is I was talking to a high-level exec at one of the big firms, which I'm sure you would know the person if I mentioned him. And my question was, it's like a clock, right? The local aggregator pays 3 or 4 times to the guy down the street to buy the book, and he does that 2 or 3 times. Then the regional aggregator shows up with 7 or 8 times, and then the private equity shows up with 10 to 12 times. And my point to him was, and my question to you is, how does it all end, right? Because at the end of the clock, there's only one big pot of money left. Nobody else can pay 20 times. The only people, in my mind, unless I'm missing something, the only people that can pay 20 times are the places where the money started, which is the wires and the banks. And as I said to Evan this morning, that really works out for them long term, because as the clock winds back to 12 o'clock, they get the money back and they lose the expensive advisor. So I kind of like, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I'm like, this is kind of a thing.
Well, I'm not trying that the whole that I mean, I get it. I think that what happens at the end of the day is that if this works out in a positive way for the industry, and remember, this is not happening in a vacuum. Advisors have responsibility here. I'm sorry, but it's your business. You got to figure out what's good for you. And if you need perpetual financing, here are the options, right? You take on a partner or you not. You borrow. This is it, right? Now, we are extraordinarily lucky that we're in a situation where these things are actually worth something, right? I know advisors who retired. I manage offices with advisors who retired. They didn't get anything to retire. They just walked away, right? And now, what was the book worth? Right? Probably nothing, because they left it alone for a long time. There's just a different way of looking at things. I think AI is going to have an impact on this, at what the business looks like. But I think that the entrepreneur who started it, if he has a good plan, is going to be able to get paid, and he's going to be able to have the people who work for him, maybe your kids, or maybe a good partner, taken care of as well. I will tell you that there is a tipping point. This is like, who's the ball player from Washington that they paid him all this money and he just kind of stopped playing? He was better, get like 50 million bucks. I think there's an element of, you can pay advisors so much money, then why come into the office every day? I'm not coming. So I think there's a point there with this buying partial. And if you buy a whole, what are you doing there? Where are you putting that money? You'll see firms developing programs where they're actually building out businesses where advisors can retire and put their books in it. That's really a place that advisors, they want to sell, and we'll continue to manage it. We have junior guys in there that are, so there has to be a structure.
I think you make a really good point too, which is, at the end of the day, this is the advisor's choice to do, and if they're doing it, they're big boys. They got to put their pants on. I think the interesting thing is, and this is more of a question to you, because obviously you have to speak to FINRA a little bit, right? Like, I'm guessing you have to have conversations with them to some extent, with what you report. Does it get to a point where FINRA goes, hey, private equity isn't all these different firms? How does this all and then occasionally, like right now, you are seeing some independent practices come together under an RIA under that. So they're kind of leaking out. But still, these companies are aggregating all over these big firms. And is FINRA just okay with that? Is it just going to?
Well, I think we've got capitalism, right? So they don't want to get in the way of that. Number two, as I said, advisors have a stake, an agency in this, right? So they're part of it. But I do think that you are seeing, a reversion to the mean, like this, everything blew up, everything's supposed to be independent. Like I said, structural, it's really more idea. So now that this idea, if we all share this idea, well, we can rescale. We can get back together and scale. Maybe that's better for compliance, better for this, better for that. And AI is also a driver in there, for that. So I do think that it's scary to be on your own, you know what I mean? And as things start moving fast like this, but we are some of the most exciting parts of the who knew we were going to have businesses that were worth anything, right? Right now they're worth something. They're generating revenue. If I owned a string of dry cleaners and someone wanted to come in, this is a proven model. You look at some of the high quality people that are getting into doing this. They built med spa businesses. They built this, and they built banking businesses.
No doubt.
Yeah. Now they're coming in and seeing this. So on the one hand, I'm sort of proud of our business that's being recognized, like that. But at the other hand, a lot of advisors are getting the deep end of the pool. They got to, keep their eyes open.
Yep.
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Tony, real quick. Do you think that the firms, which, both Evan and I clear through Raymond James, and they have a program now that really, to me, seems like competition for the private equity dollar right there. They'll come to us. We can come. Obviously, we're already on board. We're already in the platform. Do you see more firms, A, doing that, and B, is that going to diminish private equity's ability to continue to do what they're doing?
So I think it's a good point, but I think there's a distinction between your own firm doing this and an outside firm doing it. For some reason, it feels better if it's an outside firm, coming in with capital, valuing my business. I feel like I'm getting a better deal. And when it's my own firm, I feel like they're trying to lock me in. I think that the way they've approached some of these minority purchases have been just to throw money at it without some of the other stuff that comes with it, right? So I think you have to evaluate each deal on its own. And I think for some people, just like the wirehouses are going to do, for some people, hey, stick with my custodian. This is I'm comfortable with this, and this makes sense. I would encourage everybody to look around and to be smart. It is a case of the cobbler's kids having no shoes. There's a element of which, if this was for your Scott, if this was for your clients, or Evan, this was for your clients, you would be really deep into this, asking a million questions about these guys, and you would probably say, I don't know that I would do this investment, or I would. but advisors don't, they meet the CEOs, they shake hands, it sounds great, and they move the book, and now they're tied up. And so they don't ask the same questions that they would, or they're not being as specific. Some of it is, I think, they don't want to come off like they don't know it, but we're not supposed to know that business. We know our business with clients, right? But that's the job we have. When our job is not to be an M&A guy, but we
Yeah,
understand it. If we
no, I
can,
think I think what you're saying is 100% fair. I do wonder, regarding, and I'm gonna give you a little
Yeah.
plug. I mean, AdvisorHub is kind of the trusted place to go in our industry. There's a couple other, competitors you have that we also look towards. The concern I would have is that if I'm private equity right now, and I can buy the media, right? Why wouldn't I be making a stab at Tony to say, hey, is it number one, is AdvisorHub for sale? And number two, I'd love to keep you as my figurhead and not mention that there's private equity involved.
Yeah, I think,
Are they coming at you yet? And how fast are they coming?
well, I would say it's hard to, capital is there, right? And do you want capital to expand? And the good and bad thing about the media is you can lose trust, pretty quickly. So remember, we report every day on clients of ours, people who pay us. We're an advertising model. You could say that's a conflict, right? And so, but every single day we report stories, and we don't. I wish there was a great story, Merrill Lynch has another great day. That's not really a story. It's something happens and we report on it. So if you lose the credibility to do that, then you lose your audience, and then there's really, not a lot left. So I think we're used to operating in an environment where you would think there's a conflict, but there just can't be. I mean, there's news is news, and that's an objective thing. You know what I mean? And
has there been any outside organizations that have already been bought? Have you guys reported on that yet? Do we know anything about that yet?
No, I think there are, again, capital flows to where it's, going. I think they're buying, firms that they think make sense, or people who want to be involved in the business. I would certainly not say, I would just not say, no, I built a business, no, but you'd be a fool to buy this business and then turn it into a platform for one. I always tell clients all the time that, if this is great and they have a great story to tell, but if we find out that they're stealing from the till, we're going to report it. That's what we do. We don't tell the reporters what to do. So
That's awesome.
You can't lose credibility, and I think we just have an established thing. The Wall Street Journal does it. All these other guys do. That's one thing that clients can pay. You wrote this horrible story. Is it true or not? It's always true. We don't. Have you ever seen a retraction? I can't try to remember. In 10 years, I'm not sure we've ever, other than like changing a name or something wrong, we've never had to write a retraction on a story that we've written. It's always been the truth.
No, I
Tony,
think that's
can
right.
can I switch gears on you a little bit
Sure.
and ask? I've been doing this 40 years, by the way, and we have a fairly large advisor count at my firm. And I'm wondering what you're seeing across. I know what I'm seeing, but I want to see how it compares to what you're seeing. Are you seeing with private equity, with the money, all the capital you're talking about flowing into the business, recognizing the recurring revenue, all the things that come with that? Historically, I would say 9 out of 10 advisors are lifestyle practices. That's kind of how they approach it. Do I have enough money to live, to run my practice, take care of my clients, and go play golf and things of that nature? Not that there's anything wrong with that. And then there was the one exception who was generally the entrepreneur. Are you seeing any shift in that mindset with the awareness of the capital that's now flowing?
I would say for sure there is. I mean, I think, it's one thing to have a lifestyle, practice. I want to play golf on Wednesdays with a bunch of doctors, and this is what I'm going to do, versus every, $1 million in revenue I add to this thing, it's worth another 10 or 12 to me and my family. It puts us all in a different spot, right? Puts everybody in a different spot. And I think that the new people coming in the business are seeing it. So I just think it's a mind change and a sea change. And, you'd consider yourself lucky if you can buy a couple of those, practices like that and roll them up into your business and to actually take care of the clients, because a guy like that's probably not been the best advisor. And again, with AI coming, I think we have to do a better job of that.
Explain, hop on that, because that was one avenue I did want to go down, which is AI and how it's changing the business, and realistically advisors, but you've been talking, you mentioned AI a couple times as far as the buyout situation goes. So does that have to do with more scale of the back office situation and lowering that cost, or where are you seeing AI having to do so much with the private equity space?
Well, AI lowers costs, just like you said.
Sure.
Compliance is a huge area that lowers costs, and marketing is a huge area where it lowers costs and creates efficiencies. The real trouble we have with AI right now is regulation, because if I'm Elizabeth Warren and I'm on a panel and you show me this thing, oh, you did this 401k, you got a commission, but you ran it through AI, why do you deserve a commission? I can also see her saying, you did the 401k, you asking for a commission, you did not run it through AI, you didn't check it. I can come down either side of that thing. I mean, we just don't know, where that's going to go. There's a political aspect to it. There's all these other pieces into it. There's a real emotional aspect in it with, AI. And some part of me says, well, right now, if I say, what's the best ETF? I can also just Google it and I can go through 3 things and make my own mind up of what the best ETF is, right? So what's the answer? And I think the answer is more perception than reality. People perceive, the more people perceive AI is smarter than me, I'm going to go and look at it, and especially generationally, right? That next generation, they're going to look at it.
Are you seeing the next generation headcount not come up as quick because of AI? Any changes as far as headcount goes?
Well, I think that's, we'll see because it's still too early, but I think there are a lot more colleges having CFP designation degrees and having wealth management degrees, business schools focusing on wealth management. The big benefit of all this capital coming in is that now people treat us like a real business. We're not the sort of redheaded stepchildren, no offense to people with red hair, that of the business world. We're thought of as a cash cow and of value. I would also say with AI that it's not RoboCop; it's a real thing. Robo advising was a fugazi, right? I also think that it's, in order for us to add value, if I'm a $5 million client, I'm sorry, I just don't want an AI answer to my question. I want somebody to answer the phone. I want money wired. I want to speak to a person and that knows me. I have a code word with, God forbid, with all the stuff going on, right? That can wire money, for me. And that's going to be the local branch, that they're used to, and the person that answers the phone. The other thing it's going to do is it's really going to drive alternative investments, because if you can look up what's the best ETF, or tell me what the best ETF. I mean, first of all, you've been able to do financial plans with most of the custodians anyway, for Schwab or Fidelity, whatever. You already can do that, but it's going to drive alts, because alts are private investments that AI can't look into. So advisors, to add value, they're going to have to think of things like service and like adding a lot of cash and assets to alternative investments, which will again proliferate and be, among many different things. If you look today, I mean, it's hard for some of these. There's so many ETFs. There's more ETFs than stocks, right? You guys know this better than me. And so you end up with capital chasing what? So
Right.
the alternative world, looks better, but I also think it looks better from a point of AI will drive advisors to separate themselves and value. They're going to do more of that.
Yeah, I fully concur with that. When we did talk 3 years ago, we talked a lot about advisor movement, and that's obviously a big thing that gets people to go to AdvisorHub is who's moving firms, right? And I love that part. It's always funny when I'm like, oh, I knew those people and they're finally moving. And the talk that I had 3 years ago was, I saw that that a tremendous amount of people were going to start going independent because it just made sense.
Yeah.
And obviously, has that come to fruition as far as you're concerned? I mean, are people?
It has, but look, my argument is that, again, it's more of an idea than a specific thing. So there are a lot of hybrid firms. There's a reason that there's a Steward Partners. There's a reason that because I don't want to do all this myself. I don't want to pay my rent. I don't want to do, I don't want to do that, but I want to get away from this other stuff. So there's that. And like I said, Janney was strict traditional regular firm, but now has equity and all these other things. So I think what you have to look about where we've gone the last 3 years is really this adoption of, hey, finally recognition that the wires lost this war, and recognition of why. The culture matters and optionality matters, the ability to choose. Let me give, it's multi-platform, multi-custodial, and equity. That's dead center of all this stuff. So look at LPL. Name any big firm. They have a hook in all those things. so that there's no reason to leave. They're giving you no reason to say no. So I think that advisors are still voting with their feet for what they like. There's still a lot of people that are not in good situations, and from what's going to make sense for them, and they'll continue to move.
When it comes to new advisors, Tony, are you seeing the entry into the business? Is it still coming through the wires and then out the back door? Are you seeing, like at my firm, we have an intern every quarter. We've probably hired a dozen of them over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that entry into the business changing?
Well, I think that what you're doing is great. And I think that a lot of people struggle to do it. It's like anything. It's like, that another reason to join a larger firm is because they'll help me put together an internship program, which you, Scott, did it as, natural part of what you do. But a lot of advisors not. I have another advisor I talked to. He just wrote an article for us. I think he had, and he's got about $1 billion firm, but he had 11 interns this summer from all local colleges and stuff. I mean, that's the way to do it, right? Bring them in. But, Merrill Lynch stopped doing their program. I'll tell you where it's vibrant, and the only place that it's vibrant anymore, because the custodians don't want to pay, which is stupid. They should be doing something along. But insurance firms, you look at Northwestern, you look at Equitable, they hire thousands of trainees. And insurance is hard to sell, so they train these guys really well. They get licensed, and they understand the business. And they have actually a lot of it's like anywhere. The good ones have great sophistication in terms of it. So that's really where the training is going on, and there are implications for that for the industry as a whole. The guys who were trained at Merrill, including myself, right? That's going away. What they train for at Maryland, I don't know, but I know what the old training program was like, right? You made so many calls, you had so many things, and you sold so many bonds, and that was it. And it's different today. It's harder. I would also say it's harder to get started today. But it's funny. This AI stuff might make it easier. There are a bunch of firms out there who now give you leads. I think there's been a record, and I'm talking about huge firms, but firms that are 100 billion. They invest millions in lead generation programs for even wealthy people to give their folks and help them grow.
You see that, like Morgan Stanley obviously, bought E-Trade, and as these companies buy these platforms that are out there, is that do you see that rolling up to kind of keep the wirehouses still an effective spot to go?
I don't think the wirehouses are going to die. Like I said, they've retreated into their strengths, and they have strengths. And for some people, that's good. And if they make training, they'd be smart to make training one of their strengths again, and keep bringing people, in. I forgot what I was going to say about that. I had a good point, but I can't remember.
I'm sure it was excellent.
Yeah, it was very, very good.
Well, we've had, while you're thinking of that good point, I think we were up to $7 million producers that were former interns here. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the thing I'm the most proud of here. And I think that what I've noticed with the wire people, and I was that guy, I was on the wire side at one point as well, is, I always tell people that wire people get training, and it's called sales training. So we make our people go through comprehensive planning. They have to plan first. They have to do admin first. They have to do all that. And it takes, a good year or two before we really allow them to client face or do any prospecting.
I think that's tremendous. And that's what has to happen. If our industry is, going to grow, and you're addressing a problem. But if you look at the anxiety levels across the industry, succession is a big lever, that people are pulling. But, as I said before, advisors have agency here. You got to get off your ass and get an intern, go to the local college. And by the way, don't go to Harvard. We don't want a guy from Harvard. You want to go to McGee State and get the guys from there. We're going to work hard and, bust their butts for you and are smart, but, come from my dad's a cop and whatever. That's what you want, because that's what's going to drive the business going forward.
I always tell people, give me the C student who can throw the keg party. That's my guy.
Tony, what are the CEOs telling you in private? Our CEO, we just got back from a big event. Everything has to do with AI, using it, and we're using it, and we're using it more and more every day. Is that pretty much the standard, thought, or any of them scared? Like, any of them talking to you in private about something that's interesting?
Some are, but I think that the more you sort of get there, the more they see the initial panic's oversold, right? That's not a thing, right? In the initial panic, I think the pressures on our business are going to be accelerated, but so will the opportunities be accelerated. You know, it's going both ways. I know it's not like a satisfactory answer. People want, you know, certitude. There is no certitude with this thing. Like I said, we don't have any regulation. All I know is that when they started regulating cell phones, it was a disaster for everybody. Should we have known in hindsight that texting our clients about a keg party or whatever, that's a client communication? Of course, we should have known that, but we didn't, or we chose to ignore it, or we just said, oh, we're getting over on FINRA. And then they had huge fines, right? It could put firms out of business. So I feel like AI has the same thing. I think people are worried about that. I think some CEOs are like, great, you can record all these conversations. Other CEOs are like, no, I wouldn't want to record a conversation. So, you know, what's right? You tell me, and I think you have it right now. We're in an area of choice. You ignore it at your peril, but there. I think you can pick and choose because there's really no industry standards. So a lot of these firms are, and I think some CEOs at big firms, and this is not a knock necessarily, because I don't know that I wouldn't do the same thing. I think they feel better throwing money at it. I think they feel better. Let's do our own. Let's make sure our compliance is now completely AI. We're doing this, we're doing that. They feel like they're doing something, and I think they feel like that's their job. And sometimes it's better to wait. But I can't. I don't know.
Yeah, the capex spending on AI is just it's out of control, and you're right. Every firm wants to do it themselves to some extent. Now some can do it better, right? Some can do it better.
And by the way, you're talking about recruiting. That's one of the things I would talk about. I would say, well, you're crazy to be on your own. Be crazy to go to a small firm. They're going to get swamped with AI stuff. They're not going to know what to do. And that's why if I was a custodian, or if I was Raymond James, or I was Fidelity, I would be, touting my capabilities with AI that advisors can just plug in, and it all works out great.
Couple last questions, just to wrap it up. What's some good advice for the advisors out there, and what's a pet peeve? I love that question. I remember Scott's response to the pet peeve was the lunches, which I laughed at, like just going to every single lunch that you're invited to with a wholesaler. What are some pet peeves that advisors do that just drives you nuts?
The untucked shirt is a disaster. It's an unmitigated assault on civilization. We are the wealthiest country in the world, and we can't afford belts. And these guys are fucking wealth managers. They can't afford belts. And you go, every meeting I go to devolves into an untucked shirt convention, every single one. And everybody's running around with untucked shirts. Sandals. You got to see advisors' feet. I mean, there's a point where casual is, not good.
I feel like he's assaulting me, Evan. I think he's looking right at me.
Well,
as if he knows.
I was gonna ask him if it's a polo. And by the way, just standing up, I'm tucked.
Yeah, I tucked too.
But if are you talking polo, or are you talking about like full button down?
I don't give a damn. Listen, can I curse?
You can.
I
We encourage it, actually.
Either way, it's an assault on the senses. You can edit it out. It's an assault on the senses, and it's unnecessary. And if it was a similar thing for women, you wouldn't see them doing it. I mean, they just keep them. So we have women's event every just as well at the women's event.
So at your summit, you're basically saying, if they pay but they're untucked, they're still getting kicked out.
I'd like to be able to get the untucked.
I think there's going to be a breakout on how to tuck your shirt in. I think it's going to be like an hour session.
I have written about this and stuff like that. So I think sometimes people do it just to aggravate me, to bring it up. But yeah. So that's the casualness of our situation. Especially, I think it makes a difference between you and AI. And maybe people want to look like they, like a casual, San Francisco guy that is really on top of technology or something. I'm not sure.
And then I have one other question, and then Scott, if you have anything that you want to follow up with, payouts. We were talking about on the website, like firms showing like what they're actually offering. Yeah. And then again, they love to offer it themselves. They don't want that in writing because they want the whole sales prospect is out. How are you finding that firms are being more transparent, or about where we were 3 years ago?
I think people are learning that transparency is the key. Look, if you wanted to start a And look, Advisor Hub is number one in every measurable category, right? Our newsletters ahead of the Wall Street Journal, the podcast is number one, no offense, and all that. So
Phenomenal podcast. Shout out to Tony's podcast.
No worries there. But the fact is that we don't know what that answer is. So I think where's the original part of the question? I forgot that too.
It was more about 3 years ago. I was asking about the transparency of the firms regarding payouts and what they offer on the website, because I thought what you had there was kind of a cool concept. And I don't know if you've seen it, Scott, but you can actually like click on there and say what are these firms offering. Now, some of it's sugar coated and some is not. Some is like, hey, here's what we're offering.
So I think the transparency is always better, and that's where I was going with this. I could teach you I could tell you everything you want to know about how to start a news advisor newspaper or advisor newsletter or whatever you want. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Good luck. Go ahead and do it. So, I mean, you could talk about all your stuff with your firm. You could be very transparent. It takes a certain person to be able to do it and make it work. So there aren't too many secrets in this business. There are only three things you can give somebody. You give an upfront payment, you give them a payout, and equity. That's it. There isn't anything else. So how you want to dice that up, it's like you go in and buy a car, right? It's your trade-in value versus you're getting screwed somewhere. You just don't know exactly where.
Awesome. Scott, any follow-up?
No, I'm really kind of feel content now that I've heard the tucked in shirt issue. I mean, that's really, I think the whole half hour was worth that. And I will definitely be tucking from now on.
There we go.
Going forward.
Yeah, the whole company,
we're trying to have a civilization.
The company on Tuck It just lost all their financial advisor clients.
Yeah, they're done.
It's over. It's over. Anyway, Tony, phenomenal having you on. For advisors, if you don't know AdvisorHub, check out AdvisorHub. It's one of the best news sources in our business. It's always an interesting read. I still love watching the advisors that get in trouble for the stupidest shit, and that keeps it entertaining. But Tony, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Peace.
Yeah, FABA for advisors by advisors. Hosted by Evan J. Mayer, where the real ones talk business, no filters, no favors. How they structure, they practice, how they build their team. Independent route or employee machine. Talk platforms, payouts, culture, and growth. What really works when you out there on the road? No canned lines, just advisors being straight. Real conversations from the people who relate. Double podcast for advisors by advisors.